Writer, trade unionist and author of Despise, Why the Modern Left Loathes the Working Classes. Paul Embry is with us. Afternoon to you, Paul. I mean, Burnham's backstory is a good one. It's very Labour in lots of respects. He seems to be a relatable figure. Many would say more so than our current Prime Minister. He does have a mountain to climb, of course, because of the apparatus that he has to run through as set down by the Labour Party rules. But would he change the luck of the party?
Well, good afternoon, Ian. I certainly think he would be a better leader than Keir Starmer. I think he would be seen by the general population as less wooden, which he is, less technocratic, which he is. I've always felt that the kind of test for Labour leaders in many respects, in fact, any political leader who wants to win the working class vote is, can you go into a working men's club in a place like Mansfield and not look out of place? Can you speak to people on their level? Can you engage with people on their level? Can you connect with people on their level in places like that? I think Burnham can. I don't think Starmer can. And for that reason, I think that he will be more appealing to the general electorate.
But of course,
right, I'm going to stop this geezer right there. I've got massive problems with this, massive problems. At the end of the day, right, Starmer is a robot, Starmer is wooden, and Starmer wouldn't be any good in any pub in my neck of the woods. He wouldn't last 5 minutes. You've already seen history of him getting thrown out of pubs for crying out loud, but that's by the by. Andy Burnham is a mayor of a city. We know that. And there's a very big problem that presents itself there. He's not an MP. So how are you going to solve that problem? Is it going to be Lord Burnham? Is it going to be parachute him into a safe seat so, he can then have a shot at the big chair, so to speak? None of this impresses me whatsoever. None of it is a bit of me whatsoever. Let's carry on. I get bloody annoyed with all this. Party politics. That's all it is. Have a listen.
He's, as I said at the beginning, Paul, he's got to get through some pretty tricky hoops. And that National Executive Committee, powerful stuff. They could say, sorry, nothing to do with the fact we don't like you or don't think you'd be a Prime Minister, although behind the scenes, maybe it is that. But they could say, actually, logistically, we're not going to give this the green light. It means we have an expensive process with mayoral elections and all sorts of other ramifications. So it's a no from me, could be their answer. What do you think instinctively, Paul, they are likely to conclude?
Well, it's a really interesting dilemma for the NEC, the National Executive Committee, because, of course, Starmer enjoys control on the National Executive Committee. But, and undoubtedly, there will be Starmer allies who will be thinking, we want to block this guy from getting on the long list for the constituency of Gorton and Denton. Yeah. I think the problem is, if they were seen to do that, it would provoke the mother of all backlashes within the party. And actually, it would look as if Starmer was running scared of someone who was a credible opponent. That said, I think the interesting thing about the Labour Party is it doesn't usually do regicide. I mean, the Tories have no qualms about deposing their leaders if they don't think...
There's a national sport over there for the Tories.
Well, indeed. And they seem to enjoy it. They seem to go through it every couple of years or so.
That's a very good point this bloke's making. The right of politics, and I'm fed up with left and right. I don't know about you, but they're having this argument right now. The left always seem to be united in their cause and what they're doing and steamroller over all of us. We have got to wake up. We have really got to wake up to this fact. And the right always seem to fracture. I don't know whether it's egos, other ideas or whatever. It's like me, for example. I supported an idea to a point. And then when I read the law and researched what's really going on, it's like, oh! And then you watch everything. I thought, oh, my God. There are big scandals in areas where this individual that we're talking about is mayor of. Why hasn't all that been sorted out? And now you're talking about ushering him in as Prime Minister. What are we doing? I mean, I saw results from an election earlier and the bloody Green Party won. What are we doing? I mean, come on. Let's continue. This makes my blood boil. I've got something else to say about this as well in a minute.
But with the Labour Party, they really don't have a history of that sort of thing. And in fact, the last time it was tried was against Jeremy Corbyn, and the candidate who challenged him was Owen Smith. And I suspect very few people now remember Owen Smith. So there's no guarantee that he's going to get on the shortlist and become the candidate for Gorton and Denton. B, there's no guarantee that even if he was the candidate, that he would win. I mean, it's going to be a big battle in that constituency, and Reform have certainly got designs on winning it. There's talk about Zach Polanski, who's a Manchester lad, could stand on behalf of the Green Party. And even if he got through all of that and he got the 20% of Labour MPs necessary in order to mount a challenge to Keir Starmer, I think he probably would win it at that point, but there's no guarantee of it.
What's interesting about, I was just looking.
Right, let's see that in a minute. Now, they're talking about Gorton and Denton, and this is very interesting, right? Very interesting. Let's have a look at Gorton and Denton, shall we? So let's share this, right? And then we'll bring this up. There you go. That's the location of Gorton and Denton, right there. Manchester area, kind of southeast Manchester. Now, Andy Burnham is the mayor, current mayor up there. So you can see that, you know, they've got this constituency picked out straight away. Now, I've always said that if you're going to get this guy in here, he's going to be parachuted into a safe seat or a seat that they think he can win. Now, in any event, what you have to realise is if you've got this plotting going on, then he wins the seat. That looks about as dodgy as enough by-election in Runcorn and Helsby. People need to see what's going on here. And more importantly, if people are completely knocked off with the Labour Party, they need to vote in their numbers and they need to go so far the other way. It puts a spanner in the works. At the end of the day, the power is with the people. And we've seemed to have forgotten that. Let's see where else this goes.
Looking at the last election results in Andrew Gwynn's constituency, Paul, as you say, Gorton and Denton, it was a convincing win for in 2024 for Mr. Gwynn. He'd had previously better results, but it was over 50% he got. Reform came second, interestingly. I mean, it was a distant second, but they came second. And the Tories came fifth behind the Workers' Party.
Yeah, and actually, when you look at the data, Ian, from the last election, it's really interesting because Reform came second in around 90-odd constituencies, 80 plus of which were Labour and 60 of which were in the north of England. So in that last election, the Reform Party really parked their tanks well and truly on Labour's lawn. So it is absolutely not beyond the realms of possibility that even with Burnham as the candidate for Labour in that constituency, that reform could win it. So anyone who's complacent enough to think that Burnham would be a shoo-in to get back to Parliament, I think needs to think again.
Indeed. Paul, great to have you with us. Thanks for your time as ever. Always a great voice. Paul Embry.
Well, I'm telling you that they're using this constituency, its location, because of the proximity to where Burnham's the mayor. You know, they're considering it a seat they possibly could get him in on. The whole thing's a ruddy fit-up. It's an absolute fit-up, I'm telling you. Right, the next person we're going to hear from is Kevin Marr. He's a former Labour advisor. So let's have a butcher's and see what he's got to say for himself.
How you doing, Ian?
Oh, good. Nice to have you with us as well. Now, Mr. Burnham, he's the man of the moment, of course. I'm sure you probably know Andy at some level. He's well respected within the Labour Party, probably giving a few wobbles in Downing Street at the moment. But look, it's a democracy. He used to be the mayor. Some people say he succeeded. Others have questions. But nonetheless, if he wants to become an MP, why shouldn't he?
A battle in World of Warships isn't just a fight between caliber and armor.
I mean, quite. I mean, Andy Burnham is, when you look at polling of political figures, not just in the Labour Party, but across British politics, Andy Burnham is usually the only person that's got a net favourable, positive rating. Everybody else is a kind of in the deep freeze. And that's because Andy Burnham is a nice bloke as much as anything else. Yes, I do know him, but I know lots of people have come across him in Greater Manchester over the last 8 years with him being mayor, and everybody says the same thing about Andy Burnham. He's a really nice bloke. What you see is what you get. He's got a very nice style, and he's done a very good job as mayor of Greater Manchester. I mean, he took this on when the idea of elected mayors was a bit of a kind of, it might work, it might not work, and he's
elected mayors are a complete disaster. And they're all part of the regionalisation of England. This is what's happening. Carve it all up, stick a mayor in, answerable to the old commies in Westminster. Job done. Not a bit of me. You need to get rid of it completely. Now, at the end of the day, this guy says what they all say. Oh, speaking to people on the doors, or I've had lots of people coming up to me and they say, bullshit. All of it's bullshit. What matters is the vote on the day. And I'm telling you, you need to think about it, particularly if you're in this area and you have the power to do something about it. This is where it matters, because if he wins that seat, then I could say a few things. I could really, really say a few things. Now let's continue.
He's knuckled down. He's done really, really well in terms of economic growth, in terms of building a very successful economy in Greater Manchester, tackling a lot of good social issues, developing new qualifications for post-16 skills. And of course, we've got buses all over the place in Greater Manchester, which he's managed to fix this very thorny issue outside of London of the bus service. And it's one of those very ordinary day-to-day kind of things that lots of politicians don't want to build a political career around.
Right, I'm going to stop that there. Look at who's in that room with him talking. That tells you everything you want to know right there. Only you can stop this at the polling booth, and you have to come out in your numbers. You know, they're all rallying round about to stick the dagger in old Dalek, but really? People have got to read up. People have to know what's going on.
But Andy's done that, and he's got a good record of achievement, and he's developing something, the concept of sort of Manchesterism, and some of the things he's done there that he wants to try and scale up. So I think he's at a point in his political journey, in his career, where he's saying, look, I've done the Westminster thing. I was a minister. I was a cabinet minister in 3 departments in the last Labour government. I've then had a big slug of executive power and experience as mayor of Greater Manchester, which I can now bring back in to Westminster again. So that's, in a sense, that's the positives for him. People around Keir Starmer will see his potential candidacy, I'm sure, as a threat and as a risk and as a potential challenge. But the reality of it is that Labour and where it's heading right here, right now, Labour's numbers are so low in the polls that they reside at the bottom of the Mariana Trench at the moment, and that's not going to change radically.
I have to admit, if I had a choice between Andy Burnham and Sadiq Khan and none others, I know what I'd choose, but it's between the devil and the deep blue sea. And the very important thing that he says there is career. It's not a career. You're representing your constituents because they trusted you enough to vote you into place. That's where this whole thing has gone completely and utterly wrong. And, the title of this video, Starmer betrayed by his own party, they're swarming. They want him out because they can see the numbers are up. The writing's on the wall. And this is all being played out. At the end of the day, Burnham has to be... If you look at the English Constitution, I could be the bloody Prime Minister as long as the King said I could be. That's the sheer fact of the matter. But if we're going to play this MP Parliament party game, he's got to be an MP or he's got to be made a Lord. Which is it? If he's an MP or he's going to be an MP, you have the power here. Stop voting the Greens. That's going to do you no good. Stop voting everything else that's going to do you. But you've got to come out in massive numbers. You have. Otherwise, if they make him a Lord, then what do you reckon of that?
the local elections in May.
Indeed.
It's very likely. Sorry, Ian.
No, I was about to say 15 weeks away. That's all it is, the local elections. Round the corner.
It's very unlikely that the fundamentals of what we're seeing in the polls and the actual election results in the by-elections that we're seeing, where the Labour share of the vote has been trashed pretty much everywhere. Now, the reality of it is, the political physics of it is that Labour's probably going to have a very bad day on the 7th of May in local elections across England, and then, of course, the Scottish and Welsh elections as well.
Yeah. I think they need annihilating along with everything else.
And it's at that point where, the MPs behind Keir Starmer are going to get very, very nervous. And it's likely that there will be some sort of challenge to the Prime Minister's authority and his position. That's just political physics. And Andy Burnham represents, I think, for Labour, a really good option. Now, not to say that if he gets selected as a candidate for this by-election, wins the by-election, he then becomes Prime Minister. There's lots of ifs and buts along the way, and it might not happen. But he is a very credible contender with a genuinely different message and a different style, which I think would do an awful lot to resurrect the Labour brand.
And of course, just a final point on this, the NEC, there is the big sticking point, of course, for Mr. Burnham. And as Paul Embry, our previous guest, said, Mr. Starmer has a lot of influence here, but of course he can't be seen to tell the NEC what they should do. This could be difficult, couldn't it? Because the NEC may well just very simply argue that, look, we can decide that you can stand, but it puts us in an interesting position, because then we've then got to look at a very expensive mayoral situation, the seat you would vacate in order for this to happen. If you don't win it, you can't go back to, and there's all sorts of logistics behind it. But ultimately, will it come down to whether Keir Starmer gives it that sort of Caesar-like thumbs up or down?
Therapy has been such a massive part of my last 2 years, a massive part of the reason that
I think there will be lots of people around him that will see Andy Burnham as on manoeuvres and as a potential challenger and all the rest of it. But as I say, it may well happen anyway, whether Andy Burnham's in Parliament or not. The morning after the May election results, if they're as bad as they appear to be on all the polling evidence, then Keir Starmer's going to have a very bad weekend at that point. Anyway, and it won't really matter whether Andy Burnham's there or he's not. Somebody else will possibly challenge the Prime Minister at that point. There's an instinct for loyalty, and then Paul Embry made a very good point a minute ago that Labour is very bad at knifing its leaders. It doesn't do this very, very effectively, and it does it quite reluctantly. And it may be that Keir Starmer carries on, but he's got a very, very hard road ahead anyway. Anybody who's British Prime Minister has, because there's so much going wrong in the world and
indeed
domestically as well. But as I say, Keir Starmer's numbers are as bad as any Prime Ministers have ever been, and it looks very difficult to see any route back to kind of national popularity for him. So at some stage, the party's attention is going to turn and say a different leader might give us a better chance.
Bring back Neil Kinnock. What about that? There you go, Kevin. Sorted. Job done. I don't think he'd want that for love nor money.
Been there, done that.
Yeah, indeed. I was thinking Sheffield for a moment. I don't know why my mind went there. I'm sure yours did as well. Kevin, great to have you with us. Lovely to...
Right, that's enough of that. Well, they're going on about the NEC, they're going on about everything else, they're going on about internal Labour nonsense and party politics, but what they're all losing sight of is what we think, what we'll vote for and what we want. And as I said at the beginning, if he gets in, if this has got any legs and Burnham is the direction of travel, I'm a bit undecided about the whole thing, really. We'll have to see how it plays out. But if it is, and he gets in, then it's another clue as to what's really going on with the politics of the matter in this country, isn't it? What do you think? Let me know in the comments. As always, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, share my stuff. I'll talk to you soon. Doodaloo.